What's going on, guys? My name is Nick Rose. So the other day I made a video about Rae Sremmurd and Kriss Kross, and we want to answer the question about who is the better duo. Before we start, just a reminder, the last video we talked about how we're going to break down this battle and what categories we're going to go into, and I'm going to let you know just one more time. We're going to look at the group's influence, their success, and their rapping. Now, just a quick note as well, part of the success topic will also have to do with long-lasting appeal and longevity, so just keep that in mind as well. Anyways, let's start the battle and let's get right into it. The first thing that I'm going to talk about today is influence, and honestly, I really don't think it's all that fair because Kriss Kross is the obvious winner. But if I was making any other comparison today, I would absolutely use influence because, as I've told you guys in previous videos, I find influence to be one of the most important factors when grading a rapper, a group, an artist, a band. Influence to me is the biggest piece of it all. Also, I'd like to point out that there may not have even been a Rae Sremmurd if we never had a Kriss Kross. And although Rae Sremmurd has had major success along the way, Kriss Kross has had massive levels of influence in all of hip-hop throughout the past 2 or 3 decades now. And their influence even still shows today, which is obviously why we're making this video, and it has certainly stood the test of time. So that's all we're going to talk about as far as influence goes. Like I said before, it really wasn't a competition because although Rae Sremmurd does have some influence on a level of their own, and currently they do have a lot of major influence, Kriss Kross has influenced multiple generations of hip-hop, so they take the cake. The next thing we're going to talk about is success. Who is a more successful group? And again, part of that is longevity. Now, you might be thinking, hey, if we're going by longevity, then Kriss Kross automatically wins again. But that's not true, because that is a very small factor in the way that I am grading their success. Really, what I'm looking at and what we're going to break down right now is each group's overall success. And when you look at the bigger picture, who is the most successful? Obviously, Rae Sremmurd has only been around for 3 years now. But in that short period of time, with only 2 studio albums to date, they've had 10 songs hit the Billboard Hot 100. And that's really crazy if you think about it. And also, that doesn't include any features they might have had, like Sway Lee on French Montana's most recent single, Unforgettable, which also hit the charts. Anyways, so that gives them, if you break it down, 5 Billboard Hot 100 songs on each album. That's huge. Albums today aren't 20, 30 songs like they used to be. On average, we're getting 10, 15 songs an album. So that means anywhere from 30 to 50% of the songs that are on these albums that Rae Sremmurd has come out with, titled Shrem Life and Shrem Life 2, have hit the Billboard Hot 100. That's insane. Rae Sremmurd's 2016 single titled Black Beatles peaked at the #1 spot and was in the charts for 27 weeks. And a couple of their other successful singles that they've had that were on the charts include No Flex Zone, which was actually their breakout single, and No Type, which was their follow-up single to No Flex Zone. In the past 3 years, Rae Sremmurd has been nominated and won multiple awards already, which include a BET Hip Hop Award and a Billboard Music Award. Also, both of their studio releases, titled Shrem Life 1 and Shrem Life 2, have both been certified platinum and hit number 4 and number 5, respectively, on the Billboard Top 200. Rae Sremmurd is still going strong and is still very, very relevant. But they have only been around for 3 years, like I said before, and at this point, only time will tell if they could keep it up. So, on the other hand, we have Kriss Kross. They released their first studio album titled Totally Crossed Out in 1992. Obviously, as I said before, they definitely take the longevity factor over Rae Sremmurd because they released that 15 years ago. They released Jump, which was their first real single, and that song is still heard today. You go to sporting events, you go to the mall maybe, to a store, whatever, on the radio, you still hear the song, you still hear it referenced in pop culture. As far as lasting appeal goes, there's obviously no real way that Rae Sremmurd could compete with that. So anyways, totally crossed out. Like I said, that was their first studio album. It peaked at number 1 on the charts, and then their next 2 albums that followed up hit number 13 and number 15 respectively. Unfortunately, they worked on a 4th album and have never released it. I don't really know what went wrong there. They said that there was production issues, but the album just kept getting delayed, and they never ended up releasing their 4th studio album. So really, Rae Sremmurd's albums have been more successful as far as grading them by the charts are concerned, but Kriss Kross's albums also did very well. There's not a huge difference between those places. Also totally crossed out, hit number 1, whereas Rae Sremmurd still has yet to produce a number 1 album. As I said before, Kriss Kross's biggest single ever was Jump, and that hit number 1 on the charts. They have had other songs that hit the Hot 100, but nothing that's ever made it close to the top 10. In 1992, the single also won the group a Grammy, an American Music Award, and a Billboard Music Award. And the following year, they went on to win 2 Kids' Choice Awards and another AMA for Best New Artist. Although the Kriss Kross guys, Chris Smith and Chris Kelly, were almost dead broke by the time 2010 came around, they have achieved in their earlier careers a level of fame and success that Rae Sremmurd has yet to reach. I'd also like to point out that Kriss Kross essentially died with Chris Kelly. How could you have a Kriss Kross without both members? It's just not possible. So it's not like we're gonna ever see Kriss Kross be a thing again, because it can't happen. You can't revive a group with just one member. For the second topic, Kriss Kross obviously wins again, but that doesn't mean it wasn't a close battle, because it absolutely was, and it was a hard decision for me to give the second one to Kriss Kross. However, winning a Grammy, which is essentially the holy grail of awards, greatly improved the argument for Kriss Kross, seeing how Rae Sremmurd has yet to even be nominated for a Grammy. Before we move on to our final topic, I do want to note, Rae Sremmurd has continued to become more and more successful and relevant for the past 3 years, and they really don't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. At this point in the careers of Chris Kelly and Chris Smith from Kriss Kross, wow, that was a tongue twister. At this point in their careers, though, they were already starting to lose a little bit of clout. In time, I do predict that Rae Sremmurd, mark my words on this, will garner much greater success and star power. At this point, guys, it is 2-0. We already know who won since we are only doing 3 topics, but I just want to see this thing through. I want to get a conclusion here, and I want to explain a little bit of my reasoning. Finally, let's get to our last topic, which is rapping and lyrical ability. Kriss Kross was definitely, and really without argument, lyrically superior to Rae Sremmurd. They gave a real mainstream appeal to the greatly revered lyrical ability shown by hip-hop artists in the early 90s. What sets Kriss Kross apart from Rae Sremmurd is that both members of Kriss Kross could rap on equal footing. Another thing I want to mention is that Chris Smith and Chris Kelly were a couple years younger than Swae Lee and Slim Jimmy when they took off. Kriss Kross had much less time to practice and hone their skills due to how quickly their career actually took off. And what made Kriss Kross so great to begin with was that they had a sound to them and a chemistry with one another that was nothing short of infectious. As far as Rae Sremmurd goes, they normally break it down to Swae Lee singing the hooks and Slim Jimmy rapping the verses. Of course, that's not always the case, but it does seem to be the formula that they've become comfortable with. Unfortunately, Slim Jimmy displays mediocre but passable lyrics and flow. But Swae Lee, on the other hand, is probably one of the greatest hook artists of the past decade. Maybe even one of the best in all of hip-hop from when it started. He's that good. And that aside, they do complement each other very, very well between their styles to create those really great club tracks and fun radio songs that we have come to really love from Rae Sremmurd. Swae Lee has become the shining star of Rae Sremmurd because his smooth and melodic singing gives us an earworm, no pun intended, and basically gives all of his songs a very high listening value. And that's not to really discredit Slim Jimmy. It's just that he acts as a great segue and transition between Swae Lee's hooks or his verses if he has a verse in the song. And again, guys, for the third topic, we have to give the win to Kriss Kross. It was another close race, but the two Krisses were just so talented all around, and they both very quickly, in a short period of time, perfected their craft, which is so important. Swae Lee really brings as much to Rae Sremmurd as either of the Krisses brought to Kriss Kross. But unfortunately for Swae, Slim Jimmy just doesn't match. He almost doesn't belong in a sense if we're talking about pure talent because of his mediocre bars at best and a voice that really doesn't help him stand out from the other MCs that we hear today. And I mean, come on, like I already said, Kriss Kross is just one of the most influential groups in the history of hip-hop. With them, we just saw all-around greatness and an unfortunate career that just ended way too early for the two boys. So what was their downfall? That's going to be for another video, guys. But their importance to hip-hop and to the culture is just way too great and way too important for Rae Sremmurd to overcome that this early in their careers. But Slim Jimmy and Swae Lee are still both very, very young, and I think that we have a lot of potential and development to see them, and there's a lot of growth potential between the two guys there. Again, I'm going to predict that Rae Sremmurd will one day greatly surpass Kriss Kross. They're just not there yet. As I said earlier, they're still very relevant and are showing no signs whatsoever of any decline. Their career, unlike the career of Chris Smith and Chris Kelly, is already set on a track to last much, much, much longer than just a couple of years. They've already been at this for 3 years, and we could see that they could at least go for another 2 or 3 years, which would keep them relevant for about double the amount of time, really, that Chris Smith and Chris Kelly were able to stay. But no matter what happens, guys, no matter which way the careers of Swae Lee and Slim Jimmy end up going, both of these duos are historic and will always go down in history, and we may hear people talking about this topic 10 years from now with another duo in 2025 that replaces Rae Sremmurd, just like Rae Sremmurd replaced Kriss Kross. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, guys. Every subscriber counts. And again, let me know what you think down in the comments. Peace.